beautiful bookish friends. I hope you're well. Welcome back to another video, or welcome if you are new. I decided I wanted to do a video that included all of my 5-star reads for the year of 2024. Now, I know most people have kind of done their top 10 or their best books or the top 24 of 2024, but I wanted to showcase and highlight all of the books that I gave 5 stars. So in total, I gave 29 5 stars in the year of 2024, and that was out of 193 books. And I am just literally going to go through them. I don't have all of them physically, but we'll just go through what I do have, and I will pop up the ones that I don't. So I thought I'd start with thriller. Now, I only have physically one. I only have one thriller physically, but I wanted to start with my first 5-star read of 2024, which was The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. I'll pop it up here. And I think if I absolutely had to pick a favourite of the year, I think it would have to be this one. I love this series. I love these characters. And this one was my favourite so far. And it absolutely broke me. If you know, you know. So I absolutely devoured this one. And it was my first 5-star read of the year. And I still can't stop thinking about it to this day. Absolutely loved it. So that was the first one. And then the next book that I gave 5 stars, which is the one that I own physically, is The Buried by Sharon Bolton. This book is... So this book technically is a sequel to The Craftsman by Sharon Bolton. But what she did with this book was so clever, because not only was it a sequel, but it was also a prequel. So we had 2 different timelines, and it was the timeline of everything that happened before, or that kind of led up to the events of the first book, The Craftsman, and then what was happening also after the events of that book in this book. And it just blew my little mind. And I love Sharon Bolton anyway. Her writing is just, it's fast paced, it's gripping. She gives you that proper thrill. And I loved this one just as much as I loved the first one. Obviously I can't tell you too much about what it's about, because obviously it is sequel and prequel. But I would highly, highly recommend this book. Definitely go for it. And then what else do we have? So I've got them all written down, because we all know, one, I love a list, but 2, if I don't write them down, I'm going to forget. So the next one that from here on out, they're not in any order, because I just kind of can't remember when I read them. But I do have No Exit by Taylor Adams. Now, I'd heard a few people talking about this one, and I thought, no. I mean, I was like, I'll give it a go. It sounds intriguing. I don't think it's going to be up my street. And I think for the first maybe 20%, I was starting to get a little bit, But once we hit past that mark, this book was go, 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 go. It was like an episode of Criminal Minds. That's what it felt like. It felt like I was literally watching Criminal Minds. And I absolutely devoured it. I absolutely loved it. And I'm excited to read some more by Taylor Adams. If you haven't read this one, please go and read it. I can't remember any of the characters' names, but we're basically following a young girl that gets snowed in at kind of like it's one of these stop-off places in sort of, it's set in America, one of these kind of stop-off places where you'd pull in, you'd park up, you'd maybe get a little bit of coffee, you'd use the restroom, and you might need information or whatever. But it's very small. It's not quite like a services, like the services in the UK along the motorway. It's not quite to that extent, but it's kind of just like a little kind of stopover, and they get snowed in. And our main female character, she finds something in the truck of one of these other people that she is stuck with. And then it just kind of stems from there. I'm not obviously not doing it justice at all, but it was phenomenal and lots of little twists and turns, and it just was very thrilling. Highly recommend. Then I have to give a shout out. So these next, what have we got? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3. So I've got 3 books by this author that I gave 5 stars to in 2024. I actually read 4 of her books, but the 4th one I read, I only gave 4 stars because I didn't like the ending. But if it hadn't been for that ending, that also probably would have been a 5-star. That author is Helen Fields. Now, I've read a book from Helen Fields a few years back, and I remember devouring that at the time, and that was part of a series. That was the D.I. Callahan series, and I remember thinking, yes, I need to read more of these, and then I just never got round to it. But I rediscovered her this year, and the first book of hers that I read was The Shadow Man. This was creepy. This was very graphic. It made me feel physically ill on multiple occasions, but I couldn't put it down. And we're following our main character. Our main female character is, she works with she works with kind of like law enforcement, but she's some kind of forensic, I don't know if it's, I can't remember if she's a forensic psychologist or something along those lines, or like a profiler, or like something along those lines. But she's colorblind, and I just find her fascinating. She is just so interesting to read about, and she joins this book is set in Scotland, and she joins forces with a gentleman who works for like Scotland Yard, basically. He's quite high up, and he's brought into these big profile cases, these big, and they end up working together, and the dynamic between them two is really fun. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, it was just very heavy topics. Obviously, I would definitely 100% check your trigger warnings, because this is definitely not going to be for everybody, but I couldn't put it down, and it was 5 stars. Then I read by her The Institution. This again followed the same 2 characters. I didn't realize that we were going to be seeing more. They're not a series, but they are kind of interconnected standalones, I suppose. And this follows, again, we're following her, and she ends up having to go into this institute. It's like a special hospital, it's an insane asylum type thing that houses some of the worst criminals that could not be put in a normal prison. And she goes in undercover, and this had me on the edge of my seat. Okay, if I didn't love the Thursday Murder Club series so much, if I wasn't so invested in those characters, this would have probably been my favorite book of the year. So I'd say this comes in a close second. It was just so fast paced, it was so gripping. I wanted to scream. I was so frustrated. I was so, again, sickened by some of the stuff. So please check your trigger warnings. But this one was absolutely phenomenal. And then the third and final one that I read by Helen Fields was Profile K. I think they've changed the name of this book now, I think. I'm not sure what they've changed the name of it to. But this one, we follow our main character from those other two books. She does make an appearance in this, but she's not the focus. She's not the main character. And she just she comes in a bit later in the book to offer up her expertise. We are following a younger girl, and she discovers a serial killer from this job that she does. She's not supposed to have been able to discover this, but she stumbled upon it, and nobody believes her, and she ends up chasing down this serial killer. And again, this one was so fast paced. I think I'd probably put this one third out of the three, but I did still really enjoy. I just love Helen Fields' writing, guys. Please, you've just got to pick up any book from her, because she's just phenomenal. And obviously I think this year has become one of my favorite writers, and she will literally be an auto-buy author for me now. That's it, end of discussion. There we go. So okay, now I'm going to move on to a couple more that are on the list here that I don't own physically. So in 2023, I read a book from this author. Her name is Jamie Admons. I think that's how you say it, Admons. And I absolutely loved it. It was a Christmas book, and I discovered it on like Kindle Unlimited, and I gave it, I think I gave it 5 stars. And I was like, I need to read more from this author. And then this year I ended up picking up, towards the beginning of the year, it was called A Midnight Kiss on Ever After Street. And this is actually the first book in a little series. I think there's currently 4 out, and I think a 5th one is coming. And this was the cutest, like, fairy tale, fluffy kind of romance, and it was such a good palette cleanser, and her writing is just so lovely, and I was just really rooting for the characters, and I gave it 5 stars. I couldn't help it. It was just wonderful. This is kind of supposed to be a little bit of a Cinderella retelling, or reimagining, should I say. Ever After Street is this really beautiful little enchanted street that runs through this village, and up the top of the village is this castle, and the castle has been abandoned for years. No one sort of lives in it. They don't know who owns it, but it's part of the charm of the street. But apparently whoever it is that owns it, is potentially planning to sell it, and it's going to go to some kind of supermarket chain or whatever, and it's just going to completely ruin the whole vibe of the street, the whole vibe of the village, and everyone who works on the street. They've all got these gorgeous little shops. You know, we've got a bookshop, we've got hairdressers, all these different shops, and they're all owned by people in the village, and they come together. This is very much like community based. They come together to try and stop the sale. And our main character, she works in a dress shop, and she is kind of supposed to be, it's like I said, she's kind of supposed to be like a Cinderella type. And she ends up going to, there's a big party up at the castle, and the rest you'll have to read to find out. Absolutely phenomenal. Loved it. I cannot wait to read the rest of the series. Okay, then I have to give a shout out to this series as a whole. There are 6 books in total. 2 of those are very short novellas. We have the original trilogy, then we have a prequel to the trilogy, and then the 2 novellas that came after. Now, out of the 6, I technically did only give one of the books 5 stars, but all of the rest of them were 4 or 4.5. And I absolutely just fell in love with this series. And the series is The World of the Narrows, and it's by Adrian Young. So the trilogy is Fable, Namesake, and then The Last Legacy. Now, Namesake, which was the second book, which we follow Fable in the first 2, and then the third one we follow some different characters. Namesake was the one that I gave 5 stars. So Fable I gave 4.5, and then Namesake I gave 5 stars. I just absolutely love these characters. I love this world, and Adrian Young has such beautiful writing. And I actually listened to these on audio, and the audio was fantastic, so I would highly recommend. We follow Fable. She is a young girl, she's a dredger. The whole book is kind of set at sea, and she has been dumped on this island. She was dumped there when she was quite young. Her mother had passed away, her dad left her there, and she has been trying to survive on this island ever since, and she's trying to get off the island. That's basically where we meet her in Fable. And she meets West. West is the oh my god, I can't think of the word. He basically is in charge of a ship, and he has this whole little crew. This is found family. We have a subplot of romance. I think these are actually YA. They're classed as YA fantasy, but so worth it. So worth it. And overall, for me, it's a 5-star series, but Namesake is the only one that I did give 5 stars. So yeah, we've got that. Now, moving on to this one, is the 3rd book in a trilogy, and it is the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, and this is the 3rd one, which is Kingdom of the Feared by Kerry Maniscalco. So I read the first 2 in this series last year, I can't even say last year anymore, in 2023, and then I finished it off in 2024 by reading this one. The 2nd and 3rd, this one I gave 5 stars. I absolutely love Amelia and Raph. I love this world. I love Kerry Maniscalco's writing. I can't tell you too much about what this one's about, because obviously it's the 3rd and final book in this trilogy, but highly recommend. If you're kind of new to romantasy or like the fantasy genre, and you just kind of want to dip your toe in a little bit, this is a great place to start. I will say, I'm not sure, but I feel like these are classed as YA. They are not YA, okay? There is so much spice in these books for them to be considered as YA. But I love the romance, and I love the plot, I love the storyline, I love all of the characters. we are obviously, one thing I can say, these are all set in hell, in the realms of hell, and we follow Prince Wrath, who is one of the 7 brothers of hell, the 7 deadly sins, and this is just phenomenal. 5 stars. Please give it a try. And then what do we have next on my list? Yeah, okay, so then I decided to read some popular fantasy, and I actually read that. I read all of these in one vlog, and I was not expecting it, but I obviously ended up giving all 3 5 stars. And these are definitely in my top. These would probably be the other 3 in my top 5 of the year. So the first one we have is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I absolutely love Payden and Kai. I have not continued on the series yet. I do have Powerful, I do have Reckless. I am just waiting for Fearless to come out, and then I plan to reread this and then read it all the way through. That's my idea. Everyone and their nan knows what this is about, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I absolutely devoured it. I loved the plot, I loved the tension between the 2 of them, and I'm just so excited to see where we go. So we have that. Then this one again was really unexpected, and I loved this for completely different reasons. But it's Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Maher. Now, again, this is a fantasy romance, but it's got like the kind of humour of The Office. And I just devoured this book. We're following Evie. Evie ends up bumping into the villain, and then she ends up getting a job and working for him. She becomes his assistant. And then my favourite little character that we meet in the book is Kingsley, this tiny little frog that you can see here that holds up these little placards with 1 or 2 words, and that's it. Absolutely love him. This, I know this is nothing groundbreaking in the writing, but it's fast paced, it's enjoyable, and it's funny, and I just love the little blossoming kind of relationship that we're getting between Evie and the villain. And again, I can't wait to finish this series. Again, I've done the same thing. I've got the second one, I'm waiting for the third one to come out so that I can binge all of them together. But this for me was 5 stars. And then this one hit so deep, and I can 100% see why this was like so many people's favorite book of 2023. And it's Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This was stunning. I mean, absolutely stunning. Iris and Roman, love them. Absolutely love them. I always find myself thinking back to these 2, to this world. I love the found family aspect. I love the, you know, the whole plot that we have with the war between the gods. You know, and the romance was perfect. 10 out of 10. I absolutely love this book, and I am currently in the middle of the second one, Ruthless Vows. That will probably be my first read of 2025, so fingers crossed that will also be a 5 star. But this, absolutely loved it. And then so again, this isn't right, I have to mention both of these. It's a duology. The first one was Gilded. It's called Gilded by Marissa Myers. I really enjoyed this. I listened to the audio and I gave it a 4.5. This is kind of like a Rumpelstiltskin kind of retelling. And then I listened to the second one, which is called Cursed, and that wraps up the duology, and that one I gave 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. I love the characters. I absolutely sobbed my heart out, and I just wanted more. I just wanted more. I actually really like Marissa Meyer's writing. I've read Heartless by her. I absolutely loved that at the time when I read it. And I'm thinking about possibly maybe giving The Renegades a go. I've heard that that's another really great one of hers. Convince me. If you've read it and it's worth it and you think it's fantastic, please convince me. But yeah, I gave this one 5 stars as well. Absolutely phenomenal. I'm useless at remembering characters' names, and sometimes remembering exactly what happens in the plot of books. Like I can envision the book in my head and exactly like all what happened, and then but I can't articulate that. Just doesn't work. But I know that I felt that 5-star feeling, so that's why I gave it 5 stars. And then the other fantasy book or romantasy book that I read this year, which is a follow-on from the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. This is now her next series that is set in the same world, and this is going to be the Princes of Sin, and this was the first one, and it's Throne of the Fallen, and we follow Prince Envy and Camilla. I love this. I just love Kerry's writing. Her world building is fantastic. The spice, perfect. And I really enjoyed the plot as well. Give it a read, give it a try. I've seen a few people say that you don't have to read Kingdom of the Wicked and you could just go into this one on its own. Technically, yes, but my recommendation would be to read that first, because if you did read this and think, oh, there's just a little spoiler in the beginning of this, and I just think you'd get a better and a deeper appreciation for the world if you read the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy first. That is my opinion, though. So yeah, there we go. Now let's crack on with the rest. Okay. So I decided to do a reread of The Ex-Hex this year, which obviously was also a 5-star. So technically I had 35 stars, but because I'd already read it, I didn't want to include it in this list. But the reason I'm mentioning it is because I obviously then read The Kiss Curse, and that was why I did a reread, because it had been over a year since I read it. So I did The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling, which is book 2 in the Graves Glen little trilogy. And this one we're following Gwyn, which was Vivi's cousin from the first one, and we are following Wellesley, which is Reese's brother from the first one. And this one was a little bit slower to start with. I didn't feel very invested in them because nothing, like, not much was, like, the plot was moving along, the story was moving, but the romance wasn't moving to begin with. But then once we got it, oh my god, I loved it and I devoured it. And I just really like Erin Sterling's writing. It's funny, it's cute, it's spooky, and it gives you all those autumnal vibes. So I would highly recommend. And then what else do we have? Okay, so I saw this one and I was like, oh my god, I have to read it, because last year The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods was, I think, my all-time favourite book of last year. And I devoured that book, and it was absolutely beautiful and just magical. It was just absolutely magical. So I saw that she had a new one out, and it was called The Story Collector. And I still think I prefer The Lost Bookshop, but this one was phenomenal. This one was just as beautiful. It was just as magical. And I just love her writing, and I just want her to keep writing these whimsical, magical stories so that I can just keep reading them and keep getting lost in them, because they are just wonderful. I can't remember our characters' names. This is another one that was set in Ireland, and we have dual timeline again, and I would possibly check trigger warnings, because there is an underlying heavy topic in this one, and yeah, it might just be a little bit hard for some people to read, but I just loved it, and I can't wait for Evie Woods to write more. So please go and read this one. And then I also couldn't not pick up We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. This is his new one for this year. This is the start of a new series. We're following Amy, we're following Steve, and I just loved it. We had that found family, we had these quirky, funny characters, and this one is, we went all over. They were kind of jet setting all over the world because of the situation that Amy found herself in. And I'm really excited for the next ones, or for more of these to come, because I think he writes phenomenal books, and books that are really great for adaptation, obviously. And I'm really excited for our Thursday Murder Club movie that's supposed to be coming. I think it's this year. I hope it's this year. But yeah, We Solve Murders, 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. If you like Thursday Murder Club, you will love this one. And if you haven't read any of them, please stop and go and read them, and thank me later. Then we have so I read, I'm going to show you, I've got them actually right here. I read this little trilogy. This is called The House, I thought it was a trilogy. It's called The House at the Edge of Magic by Amy Sparks. This is a middle grade. And then we have The Tower at the End of Time and The Bookshop. The Bookshop at the back beyond. I love these covers. So I started reading these, and each one just got better and better. Absolutely loved them. And then realised there was the fourth one. And the fourth one, which is The Lighthouse at World's End. Let me make sure that's what it's called. The Lighthouse at the World's End. Tied this little series up absolutely beautifully, and I gave it 5 stars. And just the characters, again, it's that found family aspect. I absolutely loved it, and it's funny, and it's just so whimsical. We follow Nine. Nine is an orphan. She is a pickpocket. She lives in this den with all these other orphan children and this very nasty man that is in control of them. But she ends up in the house at the edge of magic, where we meet a huge array of characters that live in this house, and she ends up going with them on these journeys, and it's just phenomenal. Your kids will love it, or if you are a big kid at heart, go for it. Great series, absolutely devoured it. Then I also gave First Love by James Patterson and Emily. Oh, I'm really sorry, I can't think of it. I can't remember her surname. It's up here, you'll see it. I had this on my TBR for years, and I just didn't. I'm sorry if you can hear my neighbours shouting, they're always shouting, and I just didn't pick it up, and I don't know why. But I wasn't prepared. I thought this was, you know, you look at that First Love, you think, oh my god, this is a cute little, you know, little romance story, and it was, but it broke me. It broke me into pieces. It shattered my little heart. Okay, and you need to be prepared for that. Don't let this cover fool you. But it was absolutely fantastic, and I cried and cried and cried, and I gave it 5 stars. We followed 2 teenagers. Again, I can't remember their names because I'm useless. And they kind of run away together, and they go off on this road trip across America, and they're doing all these things together, and we just follow them and their story, and it's fantastic. Please give it a go. Then I read another one. This was kind of like a, you know, where these women, they've been cheated on, they've been left, they've been, you know, brokenhearted, whatever, and they move away to the countryside, and they buy a house, or they buy something, and they're going to start over. I love those kind of books, like absolutely love them. And this one is Starting Over at Acorn Cottage by Kate Forrester. Now, I've read 2 other books by Kate Forrester, and I absolutely loved them as well. But this one was my favourite so far. And again, this is very community based. We are following our female main character. Again, I can't remember her name because I'm so useless. She moves away to this quiet village, and she buys this dream cottage of hers, but it needs a lot of work done to it, and she kind of bought it on a whim. She hadn't even seen it. She just bought it from some photos because she was so brokenhearted, and she needed to, all this event had taken place, and she needed to go, and she needed to start over. And we also then meet our male main character is a single dad with a little daughter, and he ends up coming along to help our female main character with the work on her cottage. And that's how we go from there. And this is again a lot deeper. It looks very fluffy and cozy and romantic on the front, and it is those things, but it's so much deeper, and we deal with a lot of different topics, and I absolutely sobbed my heart out, and I absolutely loved it. And I think if you're into those kind of books, you should give this one a go. Okay, then I read The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. I actually listened to the audiobook of this one, and I just couldn't stop listening. I just absolutely loved it. It was a tiny little bit slow to start with, but once we kind of got into the story and I kind of understood what was happening, and you know, we've got the cloaks, we've got the daggers, they're like rivals in the city of Fantôme, and once I got that and I understood, I just loved our 2 main characters. I loved, again, the found family. I loved the plot. I loved everything that was happening. And I just love the way it ended. And I need the next book. This one was phenomenal. I gave it 5 stars, and I would highly recommend the audiobook. Then I read, so my first Emily Henry book that I read was Book Lovers, and I can't believe that I put this off. Emily Henry is just, I don't know, she's magic. I don't know what she does. I don't know how she does it. It's like she's gone into my brain and taken all of my thoughts and all of my feelings and then put them into books. And that's just phenomenal. So Charlie and Nora, absolutely loved this one. I gave it 5 stars. And then I also read Happy Place by Emily Henry. That was the other one that I did. Again, I gave that one 5 stars. Broke me. I just can't get over Emily Henry's writing. I just think she's absolutely phenomenal. I probably would say out of the 2 so far that I've read, Book Lovers is my favourite. But I'm really excited to obviously get to the rest of her backlist, and her new one that is coming out in 2025. So yeah, I have all of those. And then my final 5-star of the year, I've got one more series that I'm going to go through quickly, but before I get to that, I just wanted to show you my final 5-star of the year. And it was Operation Nativity by Jenny Pearson. Now, I wasn't expecting to enjoy this one as much as I did. When I first started it, I was a bit like, oh, okay, yeah, this is just going to be like a cute middle grade. No, this broke my heart. Read it to your children, but be prepared that it deals with grief and it deals with death, basically. But it was so funny. The characters were fantastic. And it just gave me such... I'm not religious at all. And this was Operation Nativity. It's basically about these 2 children. They go away to their grandparents, to their dad's family home. And they're supposed to be putting on the local nativity. They're very well off, his dad's family. But there is a huge disaster, and the angel Gabriel ends up time traveling to Chipping Bottom, where they are, these 2 children, and they end up having to save Christmas, which is why it's called Operation Nativity. So much fun, great Christmas read, highly recommend. I've realised I've been talking for so long, but we are down to the last little bit now, and I just had to do these as a whole. Elsie Silver, Chestnut Springs. She's just... These are so feel good. These are funny. These are spicy. These are heartwarming. And I'm just addicted to cowboy romance now because of Elsie Silver. And I'm addicted to Elsie Silver. I had a great time with every single one of them. I gave every single one of them 5 stars. Every single one. But if I had to pick, I think if I had to do an order, my top would be Reckless, Theo Silver, oh my word. Reckless, then Heartless, then Powerless, and then I'd say these 2 are kind of on par with each other, Flawless and Hopeless. But yeah, I absolutely devoured them. I love this series. I am currently in the middle of her Gold Rush Ranch series, and then I'm going to start on the Rose Hill Ranch? The Wild Love, Wild Eyes, etc. But yeah, those are all of my 5-star reads for 2024. Wow, have I not stopped talking. If you have stuck around, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Do you agree? Were any of these 5 stars for you? Let me know what some of your 5-star reads were for the year. And here's to many, many more 5 stars in 2025. That's it from me, and I will see you in whatever comes next.